Alright. Hello everybody, welcome to the Mild Rumpus, coming at you live from the house. Hello everybody, welcome to the Mild Rumpus, coming at you live from the House of Flimsy, my dilapidated one-bedroom apartment that is filled with books and noise. Today I'm going to be talking to you about all the books I've been reading during the month of February. Today has been the weirdest day, I have to tell you. When I was going home from work, walking to the train, some dude across the street started screaming, "Hellfire! Hellfire! You're going to hell!" And I'm like, okay, cool, see you there. I get on the train and I do my transfer. And when I'm getting off of that train to go to another train, someone comes off the train, passes, I guess they pass by me, and they go, "You know, you're a demon, right? You're a demon." I'm just going like, do I have the mark of the beast? Like, what is happening? What is happening? So I know like all of my recent videos have basically started off with like an excuse for being late. But for the past 2 weeks, I've been sick. I didn't have a voice. I went to Texas and I thought, okay, this will be cool. I can shoot some beef footage. This is all I shot. So, I mean, you can see where my priorities were. I didn't do any book shopping. I did a little bit of reading. But for the most part, I just took medicine and slept. It was very much a non-event. I'm afraid I got my family sick. And I just today am starting to feel kind of like I'm over it. I still have a cough, but I pretty much have my voice back. So I figured, well, I better shoot this video before it's March, because who wants to hear what I've been reading in February when March rolls around? So the good news is I've read some really great books. This has been a good month of reading. And so I have some books that hopefully you will be interested in picking up at some point. So let's get going. So the first book that I read this month was a recommendation from a coworker. And in fact, they gave me this book to read. They saw me reading Moby Dick during my lunch break and they were like, you really like to read, huh? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And they said, have you read this book? It's a little dark, but I think you can handle it. And I'm like, dark is my specialty, bring it on. And that book is Homegoing. The back of the book makes it sound like it's gonna be a book about two sisters, you know, who go on two separate journeys. One goes into this life in Ghana and the other goes into this life in America. And that's not what it is. That's like a kind of a starting point. Two sisters start in two very different places, and you see how their family fares generation after generation, and throughout history. It's really great. It says Homegoing follows the parallel paths of these sisters and their descendants through 8 generations, from the Gold Coast to the plantations of Mississippi, from the American Civil War to Jazz Age Harlem. It's an extraordinary novel that illuminates slavery's troubled legacy, both for those who were taken and for those who stayed, and shows the memory of captivity has been inscribed on the soul of our nation. Excellent book, excellent book. It was one of those where I was really sad when it was over, and I would not have minded if this book was twice as long. The ending was beautiful, and it was the perfect segue into the next book I read. Like, it was really wild. Oh no! Book carnage! Oh, it's gonna be okay, Ace. If you read this book to the end, you'll see what I'm saying about like the way this ends and the way the next book begins. It's the perfect segue. It's really kind of wild. The next book I read was a memoir called How to Save Babylon. I heard the author, who's also a poet, speak at the Simon & Schuster centennial event, and I was just really blown away by her speech and what she had to say. This is a book about a girl who is raised in the Rastafarian culture, and she doesn't necessarily want to be raised in that culture, and her father is very devout, very kind of over the top, and in many ways her interest and her like just general desires in life are very much oppressed, and she wants to kind of cut ties from the family. And even when she eventually, spoiler alert, even when she eventually does, she still has to like kind of deal with the trauma and the internal guilt of cutting those ties and living their own life and kind of, leaving the shadow of her parents. But both of these books were bangers. Like, I can't recommend Homegoing and How to Say Babylon enough. Both of these books were fantastic, fantastic reads. I want to read some of her poetry now that I've read her memoir. Really fascinating life, and it's just a beautifully written book. I mean, it kind of makes sense. That tracks with her being a poet, that the book would be, but it's not so like lyrical and, artsy fartsy that it becomes tiresome to read. It was fantastic. Both of these books I tore through. So I followed that up with another nonfiction book. This is The Evidence of Things Not Seen by James Baldwin. This is a new reissue with a really good foreword by Stacey Abrams. It's about a case that took place in Atlanta about this dude named Wayne Williams. And basically, he was accused of killing 2 men. But prior to those murders, there was a whole string of murders of like young black children. And they basically like tacked this onto his case, even though there was no evidence to back it up. And nor was he ever tried for those murders. But when they sentenced him and when they were trying him in court, they acted as if he had killed all of them. Sort of as someone just to pin it on. And James Baldwin was not living in the country at that time, so he comes back to America to not only look at this and investigate this, but also kind of give his insights on, the broader picture. It's worth a read. It's not my favorite Baldwin piece, honestly, because I didn't know much about the case. If I was more knowledgeable, I probably would have gleaned a little bit more. But, the bigger themes and ideas of this book is really, I think, the big takeaways anyway. But I do wish I had a little bit more background knowledge. So that's on me. That's not on Baldwin. But I'm glad I read it. And last but certainly not least, I am right smack dab in the middle of Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man, and I am loving it. It is so good. Like, just reading the prologue, I was like, dang, this is going to be a 5-star read. The book was first published in 1952 and immediately hailed as a masterpiece. Invisible Man is one of those rare novels that have changed the shape of American literature. For not only does Ralph Ellison's nightmare journey across the racial divide tell unparalleled truths about the nature of bigotry and its effects on the minds of both victims and perpetrators, it gives us an entirely new model of what a novel can be. As he journeys from the deep south to the streets and basements of Harlem, from a horrifying battle royale where black men are reduced to fighting animals to a communist rally where they are elevated to the status of trophies, Ralph Ellison's nameless protagonist ushers readers into a parallel universe that throws our own into harsh and even hilarious relief. Suspenseful and sardonic, narrated in a voice that takes in the symphonic range of the American language, black and white, Invisible Man is one of the most audacious and dazzling novels of our century. I have a feeling that Ralph Ellison is going to know how to stick the landing, and this is probably going to be my favorite out of all of the books that I read this month. I'm going to take my time. I'm not going to rush this. If I don't finish it by the end of the month, so be it. I'm enjoying it, and I want to take my time to really soak it in. So that is what I have been reading. That's what I've been up to. Make sure to let us all know what you have been reading. If there's any great books coming out soon that we should be aware of, put them down there. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. We've had 1,300 people. 1,300 people have joined the Rumpus, which is kind of like, especially since I haven't been the best about posting lately. Just imagine if I had actually bothered to shoot some videos. All right. Yeah. Until next time, happy reading. Take care. Stay safe. Stay hydrated. Don't catch the crud. And I guess it's safe to say at this point, I have exorcised the demons. Until next time, bye.